Peter Schmalfa here, week number 4 update. So I know in a previous video I mentioned using MCPs to do a lot of tooling, and what I've learned from that experience is that MCPs are only as good as my ability to know what I'm talking about, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. So that's a problem. Basically, what I found is that I needed to do things the hard way and kind of revert back from trying to do everything through an MCP and failing horribly to actually spending the time to go into the tools and learn how to actually do the work. So I think in the last video I covered this character and the alternate version of the character, and you can see now they correctly have the outlines and everything seems to work. Yeah, for the most part, I was able to go into Blender and fix the issues with the shoulder. This is all stuff I was trying to do with an MCP, and I could not, for the life of me, get it to work. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna watch a bunch of YouTube videos and figure there's got to be something with joints and all. And there's plenty of content. So thank you all the Blender community for the great educational material out there. Because I think a lot of this was like the reason that the MCPs were failing is that it's like the blind leading the blind. Like I can't ask it to do something I have no idea how to communicate. So in order to test some things out, again, this is last week I covered the FBX workbench thing that I was working on. I did add an additional ability to switch between like the rest position and the pose position so that I can do the animations. I do want to go into a bit about the GPT that I had made for Blender, and then just like give an example. I feel like this is good. And so this is set up specifically with knowledge about my game, like what I wanted to do, how I wanted to function, what kind of gameplay it's going to be. The very first thing I'm doing in here is I know I'm at a point where I want to export what I'm working on in Blender so that it could be used in Unreal. And I was having weird issues, so I just wanted to double check. Based off of the screenshot I was able to give it, it gave me the settings that I needed and then what I needed to check and what I needed to uncheck. You can see there's a lot of text in here. This is actually really helpful for me because it's more explaining what the options are on the screen. So I was having issues with like the shoulder. I think in the last episode I was talking about how there was like a weird tear in the shoulder and things like that. So this did a pretty good job of helping me figure out like what was causing that. Was able to use Blender to kind of fix all of the character issues, and that's been great. Next up is the research for the week was the Unreal Engine. I wanted to make so that same effect that I showed here, where I had that white outline on it in Unreal. I was like, I didn't know if it was just like an effect I could turn on. It turned out there might be multiple ways to do this, but from this GPT, it understood what I was trying to do, and it recommended creating a second mesh. What I found in doing that is that the actual characters, you can see I've got 2 characters in here now. What was happening is that because I had done different idle animations, that when I created the outline for the mesh, that technically had its own animation and was also random. Different animations that were stacked on top of each other, and it was so trippy. So you can see like one of these animations were in sync, but the other character, it was like not at all in sync. And so because the animations were being randomly applied and there's different meshes, it looked like a fever dream. So it was able to kind of help me figure out that I needed to create something. I think it was called leader pose. I think that's what it's called. And with this GPT, because there's a lot of blueprint logic and functional logic where you have nodes and you're dragging wires and connecting things around, I can use Mermaid to actually give me a proper diagram of what everything should look like. And then even made recommendations that I wouldn't have thought of, which was also really interesting because I had set it up to tell it like what my goals were for the game were. It was smart enough to go, okay, you're doing all this now, and that's going to work really great for like the one character you have on the screen. But since you also want to do like character selection, if on that level they switch characters and they're able to switch characters, like you are gonna have the old version of the old leader pose for the original character selection, and it won't apply to the new one unless you move everything we just did over to a function, which is just a copy and paste. But if you move it over to a function, you can call it after the character selection has changed. Since you plan to do that, you should probably go ahead and do that now. I was like, oh, sweet. All right. So yeah, I was able to do, I can actually show you that. So this is the new, what is over here, refresh character mesh outline function. And then this is tied to this construction script, which was where originally I was putting it. And then everything that was in that function was tied to the execution node on this one. But it correctly called out that I should probably go ahead and move this over here. So that is what I did. And then the last bit of the week, I felt like what I needed to do is I really needed to like mentally clean things up. I created all these variables and the GPT agent did a really good job of helping me like figure out the game. But then I'm coming back in here. I'm like, what was this for again? I don't remember like what these are. And then I realized that like there's a description in here. Like I can actually very quickly put that in there. So when I mouse over this, you can see it. It tells me what these are now. So I can remember what these are, and then I can click on like if I needed to set these. So I went back through this entire project and then added descriptions for everything, and then I went and cleaned out all the stuff that wasn't necessary anymore, like everything. And now that all that's left in here is mainly just the stuff that should be needed for when I actually start the game. So this is the part that is kind of like the gross part of doing anything at this scale. Like there's a lot more documentation and thought process and research that goes into this stuff that I think people give credit for. And so documents like this are actually huge for developers to kind of just keep track of stuff. Not everyone does it. From experience, I know that's the case. A lot of people are able to keep track of this stuff in their head. I don't want to have to keep track of it in my head. I'd rather have a document that says I can just look it up and then I can forget everything and come back and go, oh yeah, that's how my brain works. So yeah, I'm 100% going to be doing that. And then I know already like some of these things, once I get them in there, that's my goal for next week at least, is to try to get the as I'm playing the game and having the ability to actually like throw punches. And so I know there's things like hurt boxes and hit boxes and all that other combination of stuff and I would also like to get that second character to try to fight me back. That's a lot, I think, to try to do in a week. I think if I can get just different punches and kicks and stuff like that going, and also I want to have it have some variety, and that's, I think, in the list you saw, there's quite a bit of that in there. So there's just different combats. There's like the punches, there's like low, medium, and high, and then per side and stuff like that. But I didn't want the controlling to get too complicated, so it's basically just going to be like if you're holding up and you hit punch, like you get either the left or the right. And that's kind of I guess where I'll wrap up for this week. Even though a lot of this stuff is like it's progress, it still ends up becoming more like taking a moment to take a step back and like really thinking about what you're trying to do and then what steps are going to be necessary to get you there, and then figuring out the next thing. So because it could feel really overwhelming to like look at like, oh man, I want a game that's going to have like multiplayer mode and all these other things, and it's like, yeah, eventually I'd like to have that, like, and that is 100% true. But if I started with like that as like what I wanted, then it would feel overwhelming because I'm nowhere close to that. And I think that's one of the challenges for people when they're first starting off in any industry, is how overwhelming the scope of something can feel if they try to really like think that what their objective is to get to the end. Really what your objective should always be is to get to the next thing, and then just keep doing that. So that's my thing now, is just every week I've been trying to figure out like what's my next thing that I want to get to. So by next week, what I would like to get to is testing the game mechanics with a controller and keyboard, to have the character actually be able to throw punches. It would be interesting if I can also figure out how to isolate, because of the kind of game it is, how, like, I don't want like the capsule that's over the character to take damage. I would actually really love it if like I could isolate it to individual like areas of the body, so like chest, head. I know it's possible, and this is all the research I've been doing, So now conceptually, I know like what what I need to do. I already know I don't know how to do it, but I have the direction I need to go, and I think that's the goal part that I was talking about. Like, I don't need to like try to finish the freaking game right now. Like, I just need. I think my next week is how do I do punching and kicking? How do I make it so that like I can have areas of impact that can take damage? How can I target those things? And if I can do that in the next week, or be like in the direction of doing that in the next week, I feel like that's success. And then I'll figure out what comes after that, which might be trying to figure out how to like show damage, and uh, then whatever is logical after that. Like I probably will have more of an idea of what that is the further along I get. But yeah, and every week, this is again my fourth week on this. Every week it feels like I'm making decent progress. I know I'm still, I think I said my first video is probably going to be like 6 months before this even gets to something like that resembles a fighting game. But I'm 1 month in, and I have characters that I had in my head that I've been able to make. I've got, they look like how I want them to look. They move how I've been wanting them to move. They don't fight like how I want them to fight. That's my custom bit thing I'm gonna add. I can't wait for that, by the way. That's going to be so much fun. Well, that's it for me. Thanks again. This has been another fun week, and hopefully we can meet up next week, and I got some cool stuff to show you. Bye.